Feeling a little stretched thin, trying to juggle work, family, relationships, friends, and everything in between? Then this episode is for you because today I'm sharing 10 practical Stoic exercises that will help you find balance, reduce stress, and give you the reins to get back in control of your life, starting today. Welcome. I'm your host, V, and you're listening to the Stoic Dahlia podcast, a digital retreat full of thought-provoking narratives rooted in Stoic philosophy. Each episode is designed to inspire you to question conventional thinking and seek greater clarity and purpose in your life. Now, this isn't your typical self-help, self-improvement podcast, rather an unconventional but refreshing approach where ancient wisdom meets modern living in a way that speaks directly to women.
Talk all you want, I know what I've been made for. Don't need applause, I don't stop, I'm a strong force. Got my own voice.
Hi, I'm so excited for today's show as I will be sharing with you 10 practical Stoic exercises to help you be more resilient and more intentional within your life. By incorporating these exercises into your daily routine, one day turns into 1 week, and soon you're building habits that lead to lasting change. Now, before we dive in, I want to share something that I've reflected on recently. A little bit ago on an early drive, I was listening to a podcast where they were talking about people just being on constant autopilot. They talked about the idea that human behavior is driven by two primary emotions: hurt and fear. Hurt from unresolved pain in the past, and fear of what lies ahead, the unknown, the future. In my early stages of practicing Stoicism and working on my awareness, I noticed this pattern in myself. I was either dwelling on the past or worrying about the future, rarely living in this present moment. What philosophy has taught me is that to live a better quality of life, we need to break free from outdated thinking patterns that no longer serve us. This requires not only recognizing these patterns, but also rewiring them to align with the present and with who we are now. While Stoicism has its roots in ancient Greece, it shares remarkable similarities with other holistic systems worldwide: Ayurveda, Buddhism, Hinduism, and they all converge on a fundamental principle: we can change the way we think. And the beauty of all these systems is that you don't have to commit to just one. And in the Stoic community I'm involved in, there are a lot of people who share that they practice all of them. Why? Because Stoicism allows adaptability. It's not dogmatic, it's about you applying principles to your unique life. Now, the philosophers didn't explicitly design their writings and their quotes to be exercises. Their writings and teachings were intended to be practical and applicable to daily life. A lot of them I use as exercises. After reading a quote, you can see in there like, I should try this. Marcus Aurelius, he didn't write his meditations for an audience. He wrote them for himself. And he reminded himself every day of his responsibilities, not just to his empire, but to his own inner world. It's how he became one of the most respected emperors of Rome. And what's crazy is these ancient Stoic philosophers, they knew that transformation happens when wisdom is put into action. So in the last episode, we discussed important Stoic principles to embody in daily life. Today, I'm going to share exercises born from those principles, tools to foster wisdom, self-discipline, and emotional resilience. Now remember, principles inform exercises. Exercises develop discipline, and discipline fosters habits that become second nature. In the ever evolving, fast paced lives we live today, particularly for women, these exercises are invaluable. As we embrace new opportunities and roles, we're faced with a paradox: greater opportunities than ever before, yet a rising tide of negativity and stress. Why? Because our minds, this is what I believe. Look at me talking to you like there's facts, but this is what I think. I think because our minds are grappling with not only our childhood experiences and environmental factors, but historical and biological roots stemming from thousands of years ago, what women lived through and how we were treated. Think about it this way. If you are taking a person whose body has functioned ish in starvation mode for a very, very long time, and then you bring them into your home and you're like, I just want to nourish you and feed you and give you all this food opportunity, it's an overload to their system. They could die. Their body has to catch up with all this food opportunity that you're giving them. And maybe that's an extreme comparison. But as we redefine roles and expectations, we're navigating uncharted waters. And the way women are living their lives today is nothing like it was 30 years ago, 50, 100. We are now two household moms. We are single moms. We are unmoms, not moms. We're unmarried, widowed, and still single on purpose. The diversity of how women live their lives today is amazing, but it can also be unnerving for those who are living untraditional roles without mentors or other women to look back on. And as happy as we are to be pioneers for the next gen and independent women, there's still that subconscious chatter that looms, and it is constant. Okay. So, enough talking about what's wrong with our lives. Let's get into how to make it better. So, I'm going to give you the exercise, the name. I'm going to tell you a quote, and then I'm just going to go into it. So, let's start with exercise 1: lay the groundwork. Quote: when you wake up in the morning, remind yourself, the people I deal with today will be meddling, ungrateful, arrogant, dishonest, jealous, and surly. Marcus Aurelius. Simone Biles, the greatest gymnast of all time, also known as the GOAT, shared her mental health struggles in the documentary Simone Biles Rising. Her decision to step back during the 2020 Tokyo Olympics stunned the world, but it revealed the importance of prioritizing mental health. Simone's life was a high-speed loop of perfectionism with no time for self-reflection. Now, through treatment, she practices intentional living. She anticipates challenges and prepares herself mentally for the day ahead, giving her the space to handle adversity. Similarly, we often live our lives on autopilot, reacting to predictable events as if they've caught us off guard. I believe in our human lives, there comes consequences and responsibilities that shouldn't catch us off guard. So, for instance, if you are a driver, you own a driver's license, you know the consequence of driving is you may get in that car and there's going to be traffic. Or you work in an office full of people and sometimes it gets stressful and chaotic and you have a Pamela. You know, because every week at the same time, Pamela comes into your office, Pamela's going to come into your office and do Pamela things. Or for me, I have a child. I have a 7-year-old child. And if he stays home sick from school, I know that I'm going to hear mommy 12,000 times a day. Yet when these things happen to us, it's like we didn't expect it. Or it's like, why is this happening to me? Like we get caught off guard. By laying the groundwork in the morning and mentally preparing for the day's challenges, we make space for intentional responses. So when Pamela does do that Pamela thing, or your child tests your patience, my patience, instead of reacting impulsively, We can pause, reflect, and respond with tolerance and grace. This exercise conserves energy for the unpredictable things that truly require our attention. Exercise number 2, the dichotomy of control. Quote, happiness and freedom begin with a clear understanding of one principle. Some things are within your control, and some things are not. Epictetus. This exercise is an energy saver. And if you recall, it is also a fundamental principle that is so powerful, it's its own exercise. It teaches us to focus only on what we can control. Take Malala Yousafzai, for example, who became an international symbol of the fight for girls' education after she was shot in 2012 for opposing Taliban restrictions on female education in her home country of Pakistan. Now, for many, that would have been enough to back down, but not Malala. She not only survived the attempted assassination, despite the danger, she continued to focus on what she could control, which was her voice, her message, her determination to make this change. She couldn't control her attackers, but she could control her response, and her perseverance inspired millions. The dichotomy of control can help us navigate anything, from small personal conflicts to larger societal battles. I'm talking divorce or custody issues, job loss, or difficult life changes that overwhelm us, unless we focus on what's truly within our power. So, this exercise turns down the volume on fear and anxiety, allowing us to hear the voice of reason and truly focus on real actionable steps. Exercise 3, release your judgment. Quote, your mind will take shape of what you frequently hold in thought, for the human spirit is colored by such impressions. Marcus Aurelius. That's one of my favorite quotes, and this is one of my favorite stories. Now, you can look at this a couple of ways. You can just not have an opinion about something, or you can reframe it. I used to be obsessed with the WWE Bella Twins. In their reality show, Total Divas, or it was maybe it was in their book, I can't remember. But they often discussed how they dealt with the crowd booing them. Now, if you're not familiar with WWE, it is it's orchestrated-ish kind of wrestling with storylines that include good guys and villains. Now, the body slams and all this stuff that they do to their bodies, now that is very, very real, and they do get very, very, very hurt. But the storyline's not so much, but it's entertainment, and the crowd loves it. And the female division has just grown. So the Bella Twins, at some point, they went from good guys to villains, and it was the very first time that they experienced getting booed walking out to the platform. But their perspective flip or reframe I thought was quite fascinating. A loud boo, they explained, was better than silence because it meant they were eliciting an emotional response. They were making an impact. In life, not everyone will cheer you on, trust me. But reframing judgment, whether from others or ourselves, can be empowering. You know that whole saying about, why is my name still in your mouth? People love to hate and will talk ugly about you. And so if your name is still in someone's mouth, it's because you made an impact some way, somehow. And just as the Bella Twins saw boos as a sign of their presence, you can choose to see criticism or negativity as proof that you're doing something that matters. It's not about accepting negativity. It's about choosing how you interpret and respond to it. And this simple mental shift can change everything. It can even empower you if you let it. Exercise 4, choose your battles wisely. Quote, your energy is a valuable resource. Distribute it wisely. J. Submit. This practice will always be significant to me as it made the difference in time with using it to argue with a nurse who made a mistake or say goodbye to my mom one last time. I'm so grateful that I had the clarity and discipline to do this at that time. Long story short, if I can, it was back during COVID when no one really knew anything about anything. My mother had been sick with COVID for 3 weeks in the hospital, and she was sent home totally cleared and surprisingly better off than what the doctors expected. But they did tell us after having COVID, you may test positive for like up to 3 months. My mom came home and she was home for a couple of weeks, but she started to deteriorate, which landed her back into the hospital. But this time it was a different hospital. It was a sister hospital. And sure as shit, she tested positive for COVID, which we expected. We're like, well, duh, she just got out of the hospital. Like, what's going on with her? But they treated her as a new case. We tried explaining it, and eventually it did come out that she was dealing with pneumonia from her initial case of COVID and that it was not a second wave. It was still in her system, like the doctor said. However, every day or every hour, it seems that the nurses and staff they weren't reading through her file. And so she has COVID. You can't see her. She doesn't have COVID. She has COVID. She was in and out of isolation. The change of staff, I don't even know what their schedule was like, made it really difficult because we never had the same person who remembered us from the day before. And we were there for 7 days, but I mean, it was a rough time, and they were probably, I don't know, they were working longer hours, so probably having to get more people in so they could go home and rest. But there was a point that we met with the directors because it was such a mess to say, what is going on here? And they're like, I'm sorry, this is not going to happen again. But it kept happening up until the very last night with her. Right before visiting hours were over, my brother and I would always change places so that way he could see her off and say goodnight. At that time, it was still one visitor at a time. And she was really, really sick, and it was near the end. So right before the switch, all these doctors rush into her room in their PPE gear, or hazmat suits, whatever, and they were moving her to the ICU. And I was so out of it in such a fog. We just had so much information flooding in and out that I guess I was like, okay, we're just changing rooms. And, so I didn't think anything of it. So I followed them, and then they asked me, where are you going? And I said, well, I'm going to follow her to the next room so I could tell my brother, where she's at so he can come up and switch with me. And they said, no, you can't, and your brother can't go in there. She has COVID. I just lost it. Like, I lost it. I'm like, did you just not see me in there? I know you were at least here, and you too were here for at least the last 3 hours. You just saw me sitting in there. And now you're telling me that like, what? So I just stopped and I'm like, let me speak to your head nurse. What is the matter with you people? As I said that, staring at me over here was another nurse, and she looked at me with a very annoyed face. And she just said to me, well, you can huff and puff all you want, but that's not going to change anything. And I didn't even pay her any mind because I know that she didn't even know what I was upset about it. So I'm just like, take me to your nurse. So they took me upstairs, and we went to go see her. And then as I walked toward her, because I could tell they were talking to somebody in the background and they asked me to come over. So as I walked toward her, I had my finger in the air and I was ready to wave it right before her face. And before I could get a word out, she closed up the file and said, go see your mother. Her voice was stern, but almost as if she was annoyed with herself or she knew she made a mistake. Or maybe she just anticipated me to pursue an argument with her. But I also saw the look in her eyes, like, don't do this now. Go be with your mom because it's crucial. And as slow-mo as it is, as it plays back in my head now, it was quick. It was really quick. She said, "Go see your mom." And I turned around and I went to go see my mom. But that's the importance of keeping your focus at the front of your mind. I could have argued with that nurse. I could have argued with her then and there, or I could have chosen a better time. And I actually chose not to argue with her at all. I know how hard it was. I had friend nurses at the time. If anything, my heart was with them the whole time, too. This principle can apply to anything and everything in everyday life. Whether it's arguing with a spouse over something small or dealing with minor frustrations, ask yourself, is this battle worth my energy? Is there a better time, or does this need to take place at all? And over time, this discipline, it will help you preserve your emotional and mental resources for the things that really count. Exercise 5, voluntary discomfort. Quote, I judge you unfortunate because you have never lived through misfortune. You have passed through life without an opponent. No one can ever know what you are capable of, not even you. Seneca. Adversity is what makes us stronger. Now, I know we've all heard this before, but it's true. When we expose ourselves to small, manageable discomforts, we build resilience for the bigger challenges life throws our way. Voluntary discomfort is about stepping out of our comfort zones regularly, whether it's fasting for a day, skipping a luxury, or doing something we fear. These small challenges prepare us for the greater ones. This exercise pushes us to see discomfort not as something to avoid, but as a teacher. We realize that we're capable of far more than what we think. Now, alternatively, it can be used to master being humble. There was this one time my husband and I were flying somewhere, and for some reason I looked behind us in the rows of the plane, and I caught a glimpse of Drew Brees. He was the New Orleans quarterback at that time. And I'm really good with faces, and my husband's not so much. So I was like, babe, it's Drew Brees. And he looked back and he was like, no way. Why would he be sitting back here with all the peasants? Now, just side note, if we're not sitting in first class, then we call ourselves peasants, just so you know. But anyways, I was like, babe, I don't know. That's him. Like, it's him. I know this. Now, my husband and I, we used to make bets back then. So we made a bet, and I had a nice 15-minute butt rub waiting for me that I was going to win. So right after we got off the plane, I waited outside the plane with 50 other people waiting with me because it was Drew Brees. Now, needless to say, my husband doesn't bet me anything anymore. Those days are long gone. But my point was, how cool was that to see? From my readings, practicing voluntary discomfort is also a means to prepare yourself for unimagined circumstances. To remember that you could lose everything that you have right now: hot water, your comfy bed, your entire house. Drew Brees could have gotten injured, lost all his money due to bad investments. And if he forgot what it was like to sit with the peasants, he would have a rough reintroduction into Peasantville. So maybe try and take a cold shower once in a while. Go a day without your phone. The thought is that you are building a tolerance in your ability to cope with challenges and difficult situations. It doesn't have to be anything huge. Start small. Pick even the smallest things that bring you discomfort and go from there. Exercise 6. Enjoy the ride or get dragged. Quote, you may not control all the events that happen to you, but you can decide not to be reduced by them. Maya Angelou. There will always be situations where people try to control you, micromanage you, or take credit for your work. They may create obstacles and do everything they can to see you fail. But here's the thing. Holding on to these situations can do more harm than good. The more you resist and fight, the more you get dragged down. So ask yourself, is this battle really worth your time and energy? This brings to mind the incredible journey of Ruth Bader Ginsburg, especially as depicted in the movie On the Basis of Sex. Oh my gosh, if you haven't seen it, it's so good. She faced unbelievable hurdles, including being banned from a Harvard library simply for being a woman. At times, it must have been tempting to respond with bitterness or to lash out when men publicly questioned her right to be there. I know I was screaming at the TV. But she didn't take the bait. She remained focused on her larger goal of advancing gender equality and civil rights. Ginsburg didn't surrender to injustice. She just understood that fighting every battle wasn't the answer. Instead, she strategically chose when to engage and when to let go. This exercise is about maintaining that same focus. It's not about giving up, but about conserving your energy for what truly matters. When we learn to let go of pride and ego, we free ourselves to make meaningful progress. Exercise 7, moderation. I struggle. I think out of everything, this is probably one of my bigger struggles because I'm all in or all out. I'm all over there or all over here. What is Charlie Sheen? He says, one speed, one gear, and let's go. That's me. So, okay. Quote, true self-control means moderation, not just in what we do, but also in how we think, how we feel, and how we behave in a world of chaos and confusion. Ryan Holiday. To the Stoics, moderation's called temperance, which is a virtue, and it's all about self-discipline. It's not just about balancing what we eat or drink, it's about balancing all aspects of our lives, how much we work, how much time we spend with our families, and how much we take care of ourselves. It's about moderating our emotions, grief, anger, excitement. You often hear too much of a good thing is bad. And this rings especially true for women juggling multiple roles. Women today, I wouldn't say so much expected, but they put these expectations on themselves to do it all. But the truth is, balance is a struggle. I actually used to think it's not even real until I started practicing Stoicism. And now I understand balance in a whole new light. So the question is then, and it was, again, like I said, me for the longest time, is how do we have it all? How do we balance it all? So the first step is to take inventory of your life. Start small. What are the points of stress? Look at your week. Start journaling. Is it the same thing every day? What events or activities leave you burned out or in a bad mood? You start connecting those dots and figure out where you can cut back or what needs to change. For me, it used to be a bunch of kids who'd come in my house and play Nintendo. Really, it's Xbox, but I call it Nintendo. Play Nintendo all the way until bed. No. And every week I was getting frustrated and frustrated because it's just noisy all day. So I've like, you know what? This is the one thing that's driving me. I'm going to cut this time. So you can play games up until here and no more games after this time. It's quiet time at this time. So what is that for you? What is that in your week for you that you can cut back? Sometimes it's the simplest shifts that can create the biggest relief, like not allowing a bunch of boys play Nintendo in your house after dinner time. Exercise 8. Question the rules. Quote, above all, it is necessary for a person to have a true self-estimate, for we commonly think we can do more than we really can. Seneca. Let's talk about questioning the rules. Again, we got to go back to my girl, Ruth. Ruth Bader Ginsburg mastered this. She challenged 178 laws. This is in the movie. I don't know this from fact, but I saw this in the movie. She challenged 178 laws advocating for changes that were necessary as society evolved, which is something I absolutely think needs to be done today, which is questioning outdated systems, beliefs, and rules that no longer serve us or a society. But this exercise isn't just about societal rules. Many of the rules we live by are self imposed rules. Think about the routines or expectations that you set for yourself. Maybe you've been doing something the same way for years, even though it no longer aligns with your well being or it no longer aligns with this new relationship. It is important that you know you are allowed to change your mind. You are allowed to change your approach, even if you've been doing it the same way for 20 years. Rules should evolve with new information and changing circumstances. And we do that by questioning the rules. Exercise 9. Use your time wisely. Quote, love yourself enough to set boundaries. Your time and energy are precious. You get to choose how you use it. Anna Taylor. This is a fun fact. If you could have a fun fact of the day or the week, this is the fun fact for the month. Now, I'm probably not going to say her last name right, so I'm going to try. But in Soraya Chemali's book, Rage Becomes Her, awesome book, by the way, she cites a study revealing that women often report lower satisfaction with life compared to men up until they reach their 80s. I know I said this before, and if you follow my articles, I probably said this like 3 times or in my newsletter, in an article, and I'm saying it here. Up until their 80s. Why? Because women spend decades as caretakers. It's in our nature. It's fine. I'm not complaining. But it's not just children. We also take care of our aging parents. We take care of sick partners. We'll take care of friends. Insert all the people and circumstances here. We're just caretakers. But it's an eye opener that it takes until a woman's 8th decade to prioritize herself. It shouldn't have to take that long. As Epictetus says, no person is free who is not master of themselves. Using your time wisely is about learning how to set boundaries so you can make the best of your time to do all the things that you want. It also is a method to make it very clear to others what you will and what you won't accept. This is the foundation of freedom and fulfillment. Exercise 10. Be happy now. Quote, the single greatest thing you can do to change your life today is to be grateful for what you have right now. Oprah Winfrey. Anne Frank is an extraordinary example of this, and she comes to mind as she lived through some of the darkest times in this world. And her book sales skyrocketed during the pandemic because I think a lot of people looked to her for strength during that time. It was not the same, but it was an awful time. I remember thinking, I'm going to read this book and I'm going to draw some strength from her because I just remember her, despite the horrors of living through the Holocaust, like she found a way to have joys every day, to keep her sense of humor and focus on what she still had rather than on what she lost or what she might be losing. Her resilience was a reminder, or is a reminder, that conditional happiness, waiting for some future achievement or for things to get better, it can be a trap. And it's not to say to lose hope or faith, but to put more focus into what is now, the good in now. The belief that happiness is a destination is misleading. Whether it's a new job, a relationship, or external validation, we chase these things only to find that happiness, it was never there. It's never going to be there. It's a mindset, a choice that we make every day. to be happy now. And I just want to clarify though, as I feel the whole be happy now statement, it's misleading for some. Being happy now doesn't mean forcing a constant state of joy or ignoring life's challenges. Instead, it's about finding contentment in the present moment, appreciating what's within your control, and recognizing that happiness isn't something to chase. It's a practice of acceptance and gratitude. It's not about always feeling good, but about cultivating peace with where you are, regardless of external circumstances. Choose to be happy now, at peace, content in the present moment, not when you've achieved a certain goal, but now, because happiness is not a finish line. It's an ongoing state of being. Okay, so that's it. Incorporating these 10 Stoic exercises into your life daily, one at a time, slowly. I mean, any way that you want or anyone that speaks to you or resonates with you, even in the smallest ways, can lead to profound personal growth. And some of these exercises, they are quick wins. Once you give yourself that little perspective flip, it's a switch and it's instant liberation. Focus on what you can control. Practice moderation and choose to be happy now. You'll find yourself more present, more resilient, and more empowered to take on challenging things within your life. Thanks for tuning in, y'all. Till next time, bye. I just want to thank you for tuning into today's episode. Now, if you found this helpful and you want to dive deeper into the philosophy that's empowered me and countless women like you, hit that subscribe button and join the Stoic Dahlia community right here on Philosophy TV.
You think you got me, but I'm 10 foot tall.